Hello everybody, bem-vindos novamente ao canal Operation English, where the fluency is the target. Para quem não me conhece ainda, eu sou o Rodrigo Alves. E para quem já me conhece, bem-vindos depois de um ano de inatividade. Esse último ano tem sido uma coisa doida, gente. Vocês não tem noção. Eu trabalhando muito e eu sou pai, eu sou filho, sou marido. Então é muita coisa acontecendo e assim, agora as coisas estão se encaixando melhor. Eu tô conseguindo voltar pro canal, né, pra continuar produzindo aí os vídeos, né? Muita gente na minha orelha. No bom sentido falando, mas eu gostei porque é sinal que o pessoal tá gostando e tá ansioso aí para novos conteúdos. Tem um monte de coisa vindo por aí. Continue ligado. Você que ainda não se inscreveu no canal, aproveita, né? Já deixa o sininho ativado aí no modo todas. E finalmente aquele vídeo tão esperado, né? Pela primeira vez vocês vão ter a oportunidade de ver aí o Rodrigo falando em inglês completamente do começo ao fim, né? Com a minha amiga Norte, Americana, e nós vamos estar falando sobre como ficar cada vez melhor em inglês e em outros idiomas. É isso mesmo. É exatamente como você leu lá no título. Ok? Então e mais uma coisinha, demorou muito mesmo pro vídeo estar pronto, né? Ele ser colocado aqui no ar, porque afinal de contas esse canal ainda não é lá tão grande igual os tantos que vocês estão acostumados a ver por aí. Então é tudo eu. Eu tenho que fazer roteiro, eu tenho que pensar em tudo, eu tenho que gravar e eu tenho que editar também. E pensa numa coisa demorada que é colocar legenda, gente, vocês não têm noção, meu. Mas enfim, eu consegui colocar as legendas em português e em inglês, aí vocês decidem para que parte da tela vocês vão olhar. O mais importante é que vocês vão ter aí um conteúdo maravilhoso. And without any further ado, let's go straight to the video. All right, everybody, just like I said before, this is going to be a very interesting video because for the very first time, I'm going to be speaking in English all the time, no Portuguese. And even if I wanted, I couldn't because our special guest doesn't understand Portuguese just a little bit, right, Ella?
That's correct.
Oh,
and thank you.
Just before anything else, Ella, again, thanks bunches for joining me for one more video. And we are here to talk about something that has been such a deal to so many. We are talking about learning languages, right, Ella?
That's correct. We have both been studying languages for many, many years. You have studied actually a lot longer than I have, but I've tried learning languages at many different times in my life.
Yeah, we are going to explore different points here while learning a language. And you guys are going to see that we are not going to exactly explore both sides here equally, because I have been a fluent English speaker for many years. Ella has learned Hebrew for specific reasons, and I'm gonna let Ella explore what it's all about here, right, Ella?
Well, I also wanted to mention that, as I said previously, there were other times when I tried to learn languages, and I took classes when I was in high school. I took 2 years of Latin. We learned a little bit of
Latin. Oh my
goodness,
goodness.
Which is the basis for all of the other Latin languages, which is why I think it helps me to understand like the root words of the Latin languages a little easier.
Many words from Portuguese, many words in Portuguese are from Latin too.
Exactly. That's one of the Latin languages. And the thing that was interesting is our Latin teacher, she was a polyglot, which means she spoke many languages very
in Portuguese
fluently.
it would be polyglota. You see, our languages are so similar from time to time.
Because they're based in the same language, Latin.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
That's really cool.
And later on in my life, I was doing what is called transcription, which was working for a doctor's office, and they used a lot of medical terms which are heavily influenced by Latin. So it was a little helpful with that. But I tried
Wow.
regular high school, I tried learning a little Spanish, and then as I was exploring the roots of my faith in my congregation, the church that I attend, we were learning about Hebrew, and we were using Hebrew to sing. And I think that some people are familiar with using the word hallelujah in worship
And by the
songs.
way, hold on one second. By the way, possibly Ella is going to sing a little portion in Hebrew by the end of this video.
That may be possible.
I believe that everybody would love to hear.
I would love to do that. That would be my pleasure.
But anyway, never mind. Just move on. It's really
But some of you who are familiar with using music for worshiping God will probably be familiar with occasionally using the word hallelujah, and it means praise the Lord. So
the same in Portuguese, of course.
Yes, exactly. The thing that is interesting is we started using more, and I was also a worship leader. And as we used more of these songs, I wanted to understand what I was singing. I also wanted to pronounce it properly. I didn't want to, make any mistakes. And my best friend, who is also Jewish, she is a Jewish believer. She wanted to learn conversational Hebrew because she was traveling to Israel and knew that she would hopefully more than once and wanted to be able to, for her own heritage, but also because of traveling, be able to understand the language conversationally. My primary interest in learning Hebrew was to understand biblically what was originally being said in the Torah, which is considered the first 5 books of the language. And if we are to understand what is written in any part of the book, the whole Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, we need to understand the first 5 books, because that is where we learn even about Yeshua, which is the Hebrew name for Jesus, even in the Old Testament and the first 5 books. So I wanted to know what was being said and what was originally stated from the original language, which was Hebrew. And that's where I got started. And Sheila and I, my girlfriend, Sheila and I took classes together, knowing that we both had different reasons.
And you still do, right?
Yes, we have stopped taking classes as of last year, but we're still studying together every weekday morning.
Not as often as in the past, right?
Well, our studying would happen through the weekday. That part is the same, but we are no longer with the teacher. We actually had 2 separate teachers. At a certain period of time, our first teacher became very busy. And so we got to the point where we had access to another teacher who was quite excellent. He was college level educator and really pushed us into areas that we probably would not have gone with normal Hebrew teachers. So we got exposure to some college level Hebrew, which was great. And then we've continued practicing our pronunciation by reading the weekly portion. In Hebrew, it's called the parashah. And so everyone around the world reads that same portion every week. And so we are reading that portion and learning the scripture as well as practicing our Hebrew. And we've continued that ever since we started.
All right. Very, very, very good. And now it's interesting that even though you are, we have been talking shortly before this recording, and we were talking about you not being able to hold a conversation, but still this, your learning process has been like this. You are not just literally reading with your eyes or writing or just checking some verses of the Bible in Hebrew. You, many times, especially because you mentioned the time that you spent with your teacher practicing the pronunciation of words, right? Mm-hmm.
Yes, it was important that from the very beginning, we were practicing reading, we were practicing writing in cursive as well as in block printing, which is very, it's not as easy to do that in another language, but for any language really. But reading, writing, and speaking, as well as listening to the other person and getting used to hearing but also producing, reproducing.
And what have you done to get familiar with the sounds? And, I am asking you, Ella, because I have so many students right now, and they face the same problem. They are so afraid that they are not going to be, they are not going to learn efficiently, because sometimes they feel misled as to that. What do you do? How, we have heard so many helping expressions in our languages, just like language acquisition. Have you ever heard about that?
I believe so.
So it's kind of about paying attention to some points while learning words and sentences and phrases. But back to what I wanted to ask you, how have you dealt with that to the point that you have learned, because you are able to even sing some parts in Hebrew, just like I mentioned before, and what have you done to do?
Well, I'm kind of in a unique situation in the process of my learning the Hebrew language, because I can say things in Hebrew that sound fairly fluent, but I don't have enough vocabulary memorized that I can hear someone that's speaking Hebrew and say, I know what that whole sentence means. So that is my biggest area of, my biggest area of need. So what we've done is, I think, and this is, I think, helpful for anyone that's learning a language, is to have someone that's on the same level of understanding or who's taking the same classes that you are, and practicing with them. Because what my friend Sheila and I are doing, she is reading, let's say there's 30 verses that we need to read together.
I believe she's going to be really proud watching this video.
Yeah. Well, she will read 5 verses in English for me.
Oh, yeah.
So we know what the context is as well.
Yeah.
Or 4 verses, something like that. And then I will read the Hebrew out loud. She will listen and remind me where I've made an error. Because when you're reading it,
feels like she's a step ahead of you.
No, we're on the same level. We're see, so this is what I'm saying. My point is, by her listening and looking at what I'm reading in the Hebrew, she's checking me, because as you're reading it, it's easy to miss things. And she's like, don't forget, that's this sound. Don't forget your accent is on this one. Or I'm not sure about that accent. Let's check it. We do that all the time. We're checking ourselves constantly, because we're obviously not the teacher. We're checking all the time to make sure our accent is proper. Even just the emphasis is the right look, right place. And so then we reverse, and I'll read in English, she'll read in Hebrew, and I'm checking her. And we take turns back and forth until we finish that passage, and then we move on. And so by having someone that's on the same level as you, that understands the same things that your teacher has been teaching you, and you're in the same spot in the book or whatever lessons that you're being taught, you guys are going to be able to refer to that information. And as you practice, you can catch each other. It's easier to have someone else listening to you and saying, no, I remember that this is the way it's supposed to be said. Or if we are at a disagreement and we're not certain, let's look it up together. And it reinforces, to make sure reinforcing the positive, reinforcing the correction, reinforcing the correct way of saying it, and making corrections that need to be made before it gets stuck in our head in the wrong way.
Oh my goodness. I believe that that's the way it goes, and it's good that you are opening up just like that, Ella, because many students, they don't want to make mistakes, or they are not that they know that they're going to make mistakes, but they are so afraid, and they feel ashamed every time that they made a mistake, and this I have to be honest here, it really keeps you from reaching your goals in that language.
I knew.
You
I
never
knew what
get
you're going to say
embarrassed.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, you
I
never get
agree.
embarrassed when Sheila corrects you. This is why you
No.
have come
But
that far.
that's the biggest part of learning is making mistakes. Without mistakes, you don't learn. I don't know how many times
Not just the
that
language,
needs
but
to be said.
anything.
In
Bakery,
anything. In
you know how.
anything.
Yeah, the first time that I baked some bread here, it was a chaos. It was almost harder than a stone. Really hard to do. You know.
Oh no. Chaos is a pretty big word. I can only imagine. But it's true. You can only learn by making mistakes.
Yeah.
If you never make a mistake, how are you supposed to learn? You
Yeah.
can't, and you can't absorb, you can't just read something and instantly absorb it all. You're
Yeah.
going to miss things, you're going to forget other things. And it's important also in having someone studying with you, if you can do that regularly, or maybe study during the week and then get together once before the class or
Yeah.
during midweek somewhere. It's a good way to reinforce what you're learning, but you're hearing someone saying the language. You're listening, but you're also speaking and you're reading, and you can be writing when you're doing
Yeah.
classwork or
Yeah.
homework. So you're getting every element and as many senses as possible involved.
Yeah. As simple as that. You know, if people simply start to get that exactly as it is, it's going to be a lot easier. And
Right.
you know, when you are afraid, when you keep being afraid every single time that you try to learn something new in that language, you're not going to do that because of how afraid you are. Being afraid keeps you from paying attention to some particular points, so tiny, small details while learning the language. That's how I succeed in learning English. If I would never be embarrassed if I made a mistake.
Yeah.
You know, every single time. And the interesting thing is that I didn't get, you know, that kind of to that kind of level that I am right now just overnight. It took years.
Oh boy, that's
Yeah,
the truth.
it really took years. And if this is going to help many people watching here right now, is that the less embarrassed and afraid you become over the days, the weeks, the months, the better, because now you have come to a point where you don't spend your time being afraid. You are too busy wanting to learn the details while learning how to pronounce this word and how it's going to sound while in a sentence, because you know many words, not only in English but in many languages, even in Hebrew, they sound a certain way when they are said separately, but when they are in a sentence, when you put it all together, it's slightly different. It really happens. You know, when you think of any possible language. Before we say goodbye, we promise you that Ella would sing a little portion in the Hebrew.
Yes, this is something that the priests would sing over the Israelite people as a blessing, and it is called the Aaronic blessing.
Just a little bit before you go ahead, it's interesting that you are explaining a short point behind the song. When you are learning a language, you have to understand the culture behind it, the purpose behind, especially behind it, especially when you are learning expressions. There are bunches, thousands of expressions in languages.
Yes, absolutely. That is actually one of the best parts of the teacher that we have used most often. He taught us almost more about the culture than just about the language. It was amazing. So I would agree with that on every language. But the song is based on the Aaronic blessing, and this is something that the priesthood would sing over the people Israel. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yihunecha, Isa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. And the meaning in English, just to reinforce, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and grant you his peace. And this is a special kind of peace. It's the peace that surpasses all kind of human understanding.
A huge amen to that, and let's give it up for her.
Oh, thank you very much.
Very.
God
I believe
bless
that many are going to be clapping right now, and I just can only imagine the so many comments right after this video, and I already invite you guys to start a conversation with us about that, not just about the topics that we mentioned here, but about the song, this example in Hebrew here.
And before I go, one of the things that's very interesting, and I know that you have done this Hebrew, I was going to say Hebrew. I know that one of the things that you have done, Rodrigo, is using music to help teach English. And in addition to that, our teacher would also have us watch movies in the language that we were learning. That would kind of, especially if it's a movie that we already knew. And I used to watch, well, I still do, watch a lot of cartoons, especially Pixar and Disney movies. And so knowing the movie,
I even have a DVD here. Yeah.
So watching a movie that you already know very well in the language that you're learning can be so mind-opening. So that's a special thing I want to leave you guys with.
You know why?
Try that.
Because when you are watching movies or cartoons, you are immersed in the language. The language is running naturally there, different situations. There are stories happening, and the words are exactly where they were supposed to be.
Sure.
Inside every context.
Yeah, and your mind is expecting to hear certain words, and you're making connections.
Hold on. And the words are there in every context, not contest. Contest is a championship. I don't want to make a pronunciation mistake here.
Well, I'm glad that you're willing to admit that even you make mistakes. So there you go.
Yeah, because there are similar words, especially, even in Portuguese.
Sure.
And depending on the place that you are, the state that you are, even we made mistakes here, or
absolutely.
If we mispronounce a word, if we don't mispronounce a word, we use the wrong expression. Or if we even do use some expressions that are not very common here, for example, in São Paulo, but in another state, it would sound kind of weird. Oh, did you want to, I didn't understand what you mean. Was that exactly what he wanted to mean? And then they use similar words. Something just like that.
Right.
I don't know if it happens there in America. There are 50 states there.
There are 50 states, and there are 50 states, and there are regions that have different accents, and some people are hard to understand because of that. And I think it's the same thing that you would get in the areas that you're talking about there in the regions of Brazil.
Oh yeah. So there is another point, Ella, that I really wanted to explore, and I am so happy that we are not finishing this video without mentioning this point. When while learning a language, we just have to understand that we are not learning how to be mere translators. In Portuguese, I would say that being mere translators is just translating word by word. That won't work all the time. For example, if I say something so simple, just like, don't give up. If we study the verb give alone, it literally means give something, give me a glass of water, give me time, or etc.
Or a gift, even.
Give me
the context of a gift.
Right? Or in the past, I gave Ella a gift. Just an example. So, but now you added the preposition up. So give up, It's different. They sound different together. When they are separate, there are so many different meanings, especially the preposition up. There are so many circumstances that you American guys would use up, give up, show up. I think that I'm going to be able to show up this morning. Yes, I think nothing is going to come my way. I'll show up. Or even at school, unfortunately, your son is the kind of boy who only wants to show up. He doesn't want to study. Something like that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things we can attach prepositions to other phrases.
Yeah.
Shine on is an interesting one.
Yeah.
And that one can be taken in an interesting way. It's kind of like trying to just say things in a way that are really nice to somebody, but you're really not meaning it in a genuine way. So there's all kinds of phrases, and I think there's stuff like that in every language that you kind of get these, I guess is the word, if I'm not mistaken, isn't it like an idiom? Is that the right word?
Yes, that's the right word.
Idiomatic phrases, idioms that will not make sense if you don't know the culture, if you don't practice beyond just basic vocabulary.
That's exactly what I wanted to mean as being mere translators.
Right. We can't be, and that's something that's, I don't think that's expected when you first start learning a language. All of a sudden you're like, I need to know more than just the basic vocabulary.
Yeah.
It's important. Yeah. And that means that you're not done when you learn your vocabulary. It means that learning a language takes a lot of time. It's not something that can be learned in a year. While you can,
it's like so many marketers out there say, just buy my course and you will be fluent in English in 6 months. Come on, 6 months.
Which is interesting because I think they're really doing students a disservice. What they're trying to do is feed into people's desire to get it done quickly and move on. And unfortunately, they are so underprepared for speaking with someone who is a fluent, who speaks that language fluently.
Yeah.
And it's shocking. And I've had people tell me, well, I know enough vocabulary. I'm good. I should be fine in an interview, or I should be fine speaking with someone who's a fluent speaker of a language. Even I make mistakes in my own language. Everybody does. But
yes, and we're going to let this show on the video because we want the students to be fascinated while watching us and listening to us. Oh, what a relief! Even they made mistakes.
Exactly.
Hey, come on, don't get us wrong, everybody. We are not talking about making mistakes all the time. This would not be a good deal while trying to work in a company where you have to be really prepared, speak well, This is not the point.
You can correct yourself.
Because even they make mistakes, Even the director, the CEO at a company, a technology company would make, languages or technical mistakes. This is not the point here. We're not, but we're just not talking about perfection.
What's really important is to make sure that you recognize that it's important to get the whole picture, and it's really critical. You can't just let someone talk you into rushing into this. You really want to learn the language. People have come to me and said, I think I'm fluent enough, and then they talk with me and I just speak at a normal pace, or even slow down my language, and they're overwhelmed. So recognize that it's very critical.
Yeah. All right, Ella, it's been really a pleasure to have you here, and I hope that you are going to be available for upcoming videos because it's really important. You have been such a special part of our projects, not mine, but students' projects while learning a language. I really believe they really do appreciate everything that you have done here.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me. All right. Ciao, ciao. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bom, é isso aí, nós estamos chegando ao fim de um vídeo que eu acredito que vocês devem ter achado a mesma coisa que eu, né? Maravilhoso! Nós compartilhamos aí pelo menos um pouco, né? Do grande universo que envolve aprender idiomas, né? E é como a minha amiga e eu estávamos enfatizando, né? Se nós conseguimos, né? Cada um em sua jornada, cada um do seu jeito, cada um tem um perfil de aprendizado, por que você não, né? E é isso aí, ok? Bom, por enquanto é só, tem muita coisa, como eu já disse, vindo por aí. Fiquem ligados aí a cada notificação, porque realmente tem muita coisa boa chegando. Você, mais uma vez reforçando aí que não é inscrito no canal, aproveita, se inscreve agora antes que você esqueça, deixa o like no vídeo, deixa comentários, sugestões, me sigam nas redes sociais que estão aparecendo agora na tela, não só as minhas, mas a da minha amiga norte-americana, para quem também quiser conferir o conteúdo, tem muita coisa legal lá também. E é isso aí. See you in our next video. I'm gone!